Just as Lao Hei placed his hand on the polar bear carcass and snapped a black and white selfie, he suddenly felt a sharp pain on his exposed arm, a bite drawing blood. But that evening he discovered his arm was infected and incredibly itchy, becoming unbearable. What would you do if a simple scratch turned into a nightmare? Comment the name of this movie if you've seen it before. The bandage was seeping with black blood, and when he removed it, he saw festering inside. Just then a teammate came over to poke, and Lao Hei instinctively pulled the bandage back on, forgetting about the incident. It wasn't until he saw terrifying worms crawling out of the polar bear's rotting carcass in the lab that he realized the severity of the situation. Upon removing the bandage, he saw the wound was extensively rotten, with worm eggs about to hatch. With no trained personnel or medical equipment available at the field base, Lao Hei had to fend for himself. He grabbed an unsterilized knife and fiercely pried open the rotten wound. Sure enough, a live insect was inside. Once exposed, it burrowed back into the flesh. Everyone was horrified, at a loss for what to do. Lao Hei, reacting quickly, pulled a shiny kitchen knife from a drawer and placed it on the table. His teammates were petrified, their eyes widening and their heads shaking like rattles. Seeing this, Lao Hei slumped down on a stool and decided to take matters into his own hands. The situation became stalemate, and the teammates had to make compromises, but they had to make all the necessary preparations beforehand. They first injected Lao Hei with a high dose of PMP and then used a bandage instead of a tourniquet to secure the aorta. Even so, Akiang's hand on the knife refused to drop. Finally, after aiming for 978 seconds, Akiang was stunned by the sight of the knife lodged in his arm. Uzin had intervened at the critical moment to finish the job. After enduring 981 blows, Old Black lost his arm, but his life was spared. After a simple bandage, the team lifted Old Black onto the couch. But just as Uzin opened the first aid kit to heal Old Black's wound, she stumbled upon a notebook belonging to the doctor's father, which detailed the insect's origins. It turned out the species was a vertebrate. Males are harmless, dying naturally after biting, while females burrow into the body to lay eggs and reproduce, making them the most lethal. This development was beyond the young group's comprehension. After some discussion, they decided to rest for the night before catching their flight. Late in the night, Uzin was awakened by a roaring noise. Someone had arrived during this critical period. She excitedly ran out to find only a motorcycle, still running, and no one else around, until he opened the helicopter parked on the lawn. Uzin quickly called for help from her teammates, who scrambled to carry Amy back to base and carefully cared for her. Lovely Me remained unconscious, and they found only a camera without film on her. Just as they were stunned, Amy's condition suddenly worsened, and she vomited green discharge. Then, seemingly in a moment of last-ditch effort, she regained consciousness and simply apologized repeatedly to Uzin. After struggling to finish her words, Amy's eyes rolled back and she lay dead. Uzin attempted to forcibly extend her life, but was stopped by her teammates. Amy had clearly died from an unknown virus, and forcing her to stay alive would only harm herself and others. Uzin then realized her actions had been reckless. To investigate the source of the virus and the disappearance of her father and the others, the group decided to fly to the field base. However, they were shocked to discover that the plane's route had been damaged, undoubtedly due to Amy's death, further confusing them. Fortunately, the tracking data on Amy's motorcycle led them back to her starting point. After unanimous discussion, it was decided that Uzin and Akiang would solve the mystery. Soon after, they located the base station based on the location and wheel tracks. But just as they descended the hillside, they discovered the bodies of the scientific expedition team, apparently shot to death.